All right, Ryan, welcome to the Micro Collector podcast. I'm super excited to have you on today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on your show today.
Awesome. Well, before we dive deep into your current project that you're launching on Kickstarter, I wanted to maybe go back a little bit for those that aren't familiar with you. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about you, your background. I always love hearing about how people get into watches in the first place. So maybe you can share your journey and how you became a passionate watch enthusiast yourself. And then maybe tell us a little bit about Makoto, the company, and sort of your vision for it as well.
Sure. In terms of getting into the watch world, it happened at an early age. I don't remember how old I was, or perfectly remember the first watch that I got was one of the Ironman triathlon watches. And I think I wore that every day for 5 years straight. Yeah, after that, it just kind of gradually grew into something I fell in love with. So over the past probably 40 years, 35 years, um, I've just become an avid collector, and then recently, in the last 2 years, decided to turn it into a brand.
Very cool. And I guess maybe you can unpack a little bit about that process. So, how do you go from enthusiast to somebody that's actually building a watch yourself? Do you have to have a design background, or maybe what was sort of your skill set that you brought to the table? Do you have a design background, or is it more just your sort of taste in watches and your familiarity with what's out there and what appeals to the market?
Right. Before I got into the watch brand business, I did own a furniture store. So for 15 years, we sold custom solid wood furniture. So in doing that, I designed a lot of the furniture myself. So we did a lot of custom pieces. We had people come to us with ideas, and then I would basically sketch them out. And then we had local Mennonite builders that did all the work for us. So that's I don't have an official design background. When I went to school, I did marketing, I did some architecture, that type of thing. I always loved design and photography. So yeah, it went from me owning the furniture business to I did that for 15 years. It was a great business. And then unfortunately, some things happened personally in my life where my wife got very sick. So she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Story that I haven't told a lot of people, but anyway, that's kind of how this whole thing began, because it got us thinking, I can't be at the store selling furniture right now. I need to be home more with my wife. Anyway, so I ended up selling the furniture business to a manager that worked with me for a long time. And my wife went through cancer treatment. And stage 4, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but they basically give you a death sentence. We went into a room and they said, not to make this a sad story, but we went into a room and they said she had 4 months to live. We said, I got to sell the business and drop everything. The happy side of the story is that was 4 years ago, and she's doing great now.
Oh,
So
wow.
she had some incredible treatment. She worked with some amazing doctors. She went to California. She went wherever she could go. She did something called immunotherapy, which has basically gotten rid of almost all of the cancer. So that leads us into, after she got well enough to travel, we said, we're just going to travel the world, drop everything, and just see the world. So that led us to Singapore, Thailand, and during that trip, we stopped in Japan for a while. And that's when I fell in love with Japan. My wife and I, just everything about it, the people, the culture, just the respect they have, just everything about Japan just resonated with me. And that's actually when I decided to start. In my head, I said, this is the next phase. So that's how the brand kind of evolved into Makoto.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for opening up and sharing that story. And what amazing journey, and I'm so glad to hear that everything is on the right track and your wife is doing well. And amazing to hear that this gave you the opportunity to travel the world and connect with a place like Japan. And I've noticed that about your brand is there's a real deep connection. I can feel, what I love about your brand, about Makoto, is I can feel both your passion for watches, your passion for craftsmanship. So when you're sharing your story about your store and the furniture store and the designs and so on that you were working on there, I can feel the attention to detail and craftsmanship.
Thank you.
And I can also obviously, feel that connection to Japan. So I was going to ask you, you mentioned, you love Japanese culture. What was it that sort of struck you about the Japanese culture in general? And how did you decide to tie that into the watches that you were building for Makoto and calling the company Makoto? I know all the models have meaning as well, and all the way down to the designs themselves. I've seen you sort of talk about how they reflect different parts of Japanese culture or Japanese, nature. So maybe tell us a little bit about that connection there.
Um, it's hard to put into words. When we stepped off the plane into Japan, it's just a feeling of serenity there. To me, it was just I had luckily been fortunate enough to travel a lot of places around the world, and it was just a complete eye opener to me. Just it was I think to me it was just the level of respect that people have towards one another, just the way they live in such a strange environment. They respect everything, and I respect just the amount of work and time they put into design. It's not just watches. I've loved Japanese. I'm a big car guy, so I appreciate Japanese cars, car culture. So yeah, to me it was just the right fit because there was a lot of things. It wasn't just my wife's situation that kind of made me make that final leap into naming the brand Makoto. Our first day in Japan, I actually got a message, a phone call that my father had passed away the first day that I was there. So there was a lot going on in my life when we were visiting Japan. Yeah, and to me, I've since I've started this brand and naming it Makoto, I have gotten a lot of feedback and kickback that why is a Canadian starting a brand called Makoto? That's Japanese. He's not Japanese, and I get it. I'm not claiming to be Japanese. I'm not claiming they're Japanese made. It's just simply an inspiration behind the brand. So there's so many things in Japan that you can take inspiration from, just the culture, just the beauty of Japan. So that's what inspired me to start the company.
And I think, it's also probably been a vehicle for you to learn more about Japan, right? You had that
For sure.
connection, you had that interest in learning more.
Exactly.
Clearly, when I read the descriptions of the watches that you have and the inspiration of the designs and the meaning of the words behind it, you clearly now have a lot of knowledge about Japan.
Not
So it's
nearly
probably
enough.
been,
Getting there, yeah.
yeah. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about it. So I saw that you have 5 different models now. You have a new one, which we
We're
can
down
go,
to 4 now, actually, 'cause I
okay.
we had 5. The 5th was the Enzo GMT. I actually decided after spending all the money on production and prototyping, it just didn't fit right in the lineup. So we're gonna offer a GMT watch, but it's gonna fall in line more with what we're doing. So expensive mistake, but I'm not willing to compromise on stuff like that if I'm not 100% satisfied. The watch, it was actually incredible. I loved the watch. I love the design of the watch. It just didn't fit right with what I'm trying to do with the brand right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, these are some of the hard decisions that I'm sure as a microbrand owner you have to make, right?
Yeah.
So, appreciate you sharing it and kudos to you for making that tough decision.
Yeah.
But now focusing on the 4
Yeah.
that you have in your lineup, maybe you can walk us through each one of them, tell us a little bit about them, the features, but also the
I
sort of
have some on my
inspiration
right.
behind them. And
Sure.
if you have them, we'd love to see them as well.
So we'll start with the Shibuya watch. So that was clearly inspired by the Shibuya crossing in Japan. So yeah, this was basically just a design that I started just as something just to be fun and quirky. I knew it wasn't going to be for everybody. Because it's kind of a polarizing design. So I've heard both sides of the coin that, oh, that looks incredible, it's fun, that you're not taking it too serious, and other people said that's that's hideous. But you have to have some thick skin as a watch brand for sure. That's something I've learned. But yeah, that was just designed to get the brand name out there, just to get people talking, saying, "Oh, have you seen this crazy looking watch? Here's the brand name." But I wanted to still be a good quality watch, so we made it out of grade 5 titanium. All the markers there are each individually hand applied. They're all blocks of 3D loom. Yeah, and then the dial is actually a textured dial to make it look like the road surface. the colors of the hands. I wanted it to mimic like some of the markings and the colors on the road. So everything has a purpose behind it. Even the seconds hand, it has a little blue and white pip on it. Everything was just meant to look kind of like road signs or just things that have to do with Shibuya. So I just thought it was a fun way to start.
That's awesome. I'm a big fan of it.
Thank you.
I love interesting dials. That's probably the first thing that catches my attention about watches is the dials. So that's definitely unique. Also, I think I was mentioning it before we started recording that I grew up in Hong Kong. So whenever I see the Shibuya crossing, it reminds me of Hong Kong. We have
Yeah,
many crossings in Hong Kong that very
right.
similarly become very crowded very quickly. That resonates with me definitely, not just the beauty in that design, the uniqueness of the design, but also
Yeah.
the meaning behind it.
And it was funny because I showcased this watch in Prague, and a couple of the brands, an Asian brand that you would I'm not going to mention the name, but the owner came over to me and I showed him the watch, and he was just shaking his head. He says, "Why does it take a Canadian to come up with a watch that looks like Shibuya?" So it was a funny conversation, but yeah, yeah, we're actually and I am working on a second version of this in a quartz model with, DLC black coating, so I've just because I've had a lot of people that are interested in it, but it is fairly expensive because it's grade 5 titanium and the dial is pretty intricate, like, it's the amount of pieces that go into that dial. I don't think people understand the amount of work that goes in just into that dial alone, so we're gonna do a more affordable DLC coating, black version with a quartz VH31, the high beat mecha quartz movement. So we're gonna try to get that in at least half the price of this one. And then moving on, we went to our 2 dive watches. So we did the white dial. This is called the Hakusan. So that is a fully loomed dial and fully loomed bezel, and that took inspiration from Mount Hakusan. So that one's a 200-meter diver, and then we did a blue dial as well with that one called the Hamana, which is from Lake Hamana. And then we moved into our stone dials. I'm not sure how many of the stone dials you want me to show you, but we did a 37 millimeter. This is our pink mother of pearl.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Again, you know, dials really resonate with me, and that one is very unique.
Thank you.
Really
Yeah,
stands out to me.
I'm kind of the same way. I know a lot of people are like dial. It's all about the dial for me and just clean aesthetics. And then we did this is the model here with the malachite dial. This is where this whole Kotawari model started with
I
uh,
love that one.
design. So the inspiration behind this was the bamboo forest. So most of the malachite dials that you see for sale, they have the stone pattern running horizontally. So I flipped it to turn it vertically to make it look a little bit like the bamboo forest. And so that was the inspiration behind this whole model was that watch there. And then we moved into our current lineup, which is our Nagomi. And I'll show you this is the limited edition version. So this is the black, gray, and gold. So this is limited to only 28 pieces. I think we've sold maybe 20 so far. So I think there's about eight to 10 left. And then we're also releasing the green version of this, which is identical to this, except it has a green sunburst style. I don't have that one yet. And then something that we just announced today, you may not have even heard this, but sorry, this is all wrapped up. But the back of these have an engraving. It shows Mount Fuji and some cherry blossoms in the background. But I had some people from Kickstarter reach out and say, what do you think about doing a sapphire crystal on the back so we can see the movement just in the limited edition version? So I reached out to the factory and had some conversations with them, and they said, "Yep, we can do it." It adds a tiny little bit of thickness to the watch, but it's the standard watch is only 9.9 millimeters, so it's a very thin case. So it's the sapphire is only going to add another zero point 0.5 millimeters, so it's still going to be a very thin case. And I think it just adds a little more. It makes that watch a little more special. I think it'll separate itself a little bit more from the standard version, which is this guy here. This is the blue version, so it has a different bracelet, and it doesn't have the kanji number 12 at the top. But yeah, so that's where we're at currently.
That's very cool.
Thank
And you
you.
mentioned that you're on Kickstarter with the Nagomi.
Yes.
it looks like you've already, I think, very quickly passed your funding goal, which
Yeah,
is
within
really, really great.
25 minutes, we hit our goal, which was great.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing. Was there anything that you mentioned to me earlier that you had launched a previous model on Kickstarter before? Was there anything that you learned from that previous experience that helped you out this time as you thought about launching the Nagomi on,
for sure.
on Kickstarter?
Yeah, I think in terms of just setting up the launch page, it helped get that ready a little bit quicker, knowing what at least since the first, campaign was pretty successful, I kind of tried to mimic that launch page, which helped me because the first time around, it took a long time to set it up properly. Yeah, learning from that and then just understanding the flow of Kickstarter that you get a lot of people initially in the first 24, 48 hours, and then you'll lose some during a day or a week. You might lose 5, but you might gain 6 or 7. So it's kind of it's a it's an emotional roller coaster seeing you get excited because 'cause you're getting a lot more backers, and then you might lose 3 or 4 or 5. So you just have to know that that's just the nature of Kickstarter. It's not just our campaign. I've seen it in all of them. So, yeah, that's what I learned from doing that.
It seems like Kickstarter is a great a channel for, especially for microbrands. I mean, one of the things that I love about microbrands is the fact that as a collector, you get a direct connection to the founder. You really go deeper into their vision and their story behind the watch. But as you pointed out, maybe on the founder's side, it's an opportunity to get feedback and be able to iterate on the models. Have you found that? I mean, you mentioned the story of the, the case back, right? And being able to get the factory to make an adjustment for the limited edition so that people could see the movement based on feedback from your backers. Is that something that you've seen that's very common? And does it sort of set that precedent going forward where now you have these super fan collectors that give you inspiration and sort of help you iterate and come out with the next model that's even better than the one before it?
Yeah, for sure, Kickstarter is I think for a new brand, it's a fantastic outlet to get your name out there to all over the world, right? Because there's our first campaign, we delivered watches to I think we ended up delivering to 23 different countries. So we now have watches in Abu Dhabi, we have watches in Australia, Hong Kong. We have them all over the world now, and we wouldn't get that exposure unless we did Kickstarter. And I've found that during the second Kickstarter, we've seen a lot of the same backers come back from the first campaign. So I would highly recommend a new brand look into doing a campaign like that. From my experience, it's good to have selection and make sure your campaign is built properly and has enough information in it because it's easy. I started an Indiegogo campaign for my Shibuya watch. That was the first campaign I tried, and it was a it was a big flop. I think I ended up with 4 backers, so I didn't do enough homework, my campaign wasn't set up properly, I didn't have enough video, I didn't have YouTube reviews. All these things help, I think, for a small brand. Send your watches to YouTube reviewers, get content made out there, and then add it to your Kickstarter campaign. Yeah, it's been a great launching spot for us, for sure. And s and then, yeah, tweaking the design. I think I'm most brands will not do what I'm doing because you're never gonna make everybody happy. I originally with some of my first designs, I tried to listen to everybody, and you're never gonna end up with a watch that works. So you have to start with a design that you are very happy with, and then listen to your customers and make minor tweaks if it doesn't interfere with your design. You have to stay true to the design of your watch, I think. But having said that, I think you need to listen to your customers. I'm part of a bunch of Facebook groups. I'm part of lots of groups, so I always love putting things out there before they're launched. It's probably not recommended. I know other brands, they're like, "Don't do that. That's terrible. Just do your own design." But, I'm a new small brand. I got into this hobby because I loved micro brands. I love watches in general. And for me, the ability to reach out to an owner of a watch brand and maybe have an influence on their final design, I think it's fantastic. So when I get people emailing me like this Kickstarter campaign and saying, have you thought about doing this and this? And you get a lot of people saying, oh, have you done this? Why don't you do this? Which is great, and I'd love to do everything, but there's only so much budget to go around. But this one, for example, the sapphire case back, I thought, you know what, that's actually a good idea. And it separates itself a little bit more from the standard model. Not only the kanji and the gold and the limited edition, but why not see if we can do it? Because personally like seeing a movement as well when I can, if it's not going to affect the water rating or anything like that. So yeah, I reached out and they said, let's do it. So now that person that got a hold of me and said, "Hey, is this something?" Now he's got a story, right? He's gonna own a watch that he actually influenced the design of that watch, so I think it's
Love that.
cool.
I love that. Yeah, I'm definitely on your side in terms of love seeing founders sharing their designs early. I think from a founder perspective, it also builds up that enthusiasm and that following and that interest early,
Right,
which is really great. And also getting some feedback that makes sure that what you launch does align with the market is really important.
for sure.
One thing that really resonated with me about your watches, beyond the beautiful design and the thoughtful stories behind them, is this focus on high quality materials and on being able to deliver enduring watches at an accessible price. We always talk or hear about, you know, Rolexes and Pateks being passed down generation to generation, but that's only a certain percentage of the population that can afford that, right? Why not open that up to everybody so that, you know, everybody can have that legacy passed on, or that you know, memory passed on through a watch. But I also understand that that can be quite challenging at an accessible price point. So can you
Can
maybe
be.
tell us a little bit about how you've been able to balance craftsmanship, quality, and also cost? I'm assuming that's a big challenge, and
It
would love your
is.
perspective on it.
Yeah, sure. Getting started with the brand because I have such a background in owning high I've had some expensive pieces in my day, and I've had tons of, Seikos and all these micro brands. I've had them all. And the reality of it is that the difference between that 10 or $15,000 watch and say $1,000 well-built microbrand watch, there is not a huge difference nowadays because the manufacturing in China now, some of the better companies, the better factories are putting out some incredible fit, finish, quality control, the dials. So yeah, for me, it's always been about quality. For me, the difficult part is the pricing. My prices, I'm trying to keep everything under 1,000 Canadian, which is tough to do. The reality of what I'm doing is I'm not getting near enough margin for what I should be getting for what my cost is. There's a certain percentage that almost every now that I've been doing this for about a year and a half, 2 years, I've talked to a lot of other micro brand owners and even some bigger brand owners. And when I tell them, because we discuss, usually they ask my pricing and, they guess what my cost is, and I'm like, "Nope." They said, "You're not making enough money." And, I'm like, "Yeah, I know," which is tough because in order to sustain this business, you need a certain amount of markup because as much as especially for me, because I'm not just trying to make 1 or 2 models and leave it at that for a year or 2. I'm trying to come out with a whole lineup and then work with that lineup for the next 3 or 4 years, because I wanted to build a brand pretty quickly and offer enough pieces that it appealed to lots of different people. So, it's very expensive to come out with 5, 6, 10 different models in 2 years. The prototyping, the samples, the mold fees, it is like that was the biggest shock with me right now, the amount of money that it costs to get a brand like this going, to try to get it to the status that I want it to be. This is my full-time job. This isn't a I know a lot of micro brand owners that start with one piece and they just kinda do it on the side, which is great. There needs to be brands like that, but that was never my goal. My goal is to build it slowly, but grow it into a well-known brand. So I thought I had to do it somewhat aggressively, but yeah, it's very expensive to start pumping out a lot of models, quickly.
Yeah, I noticed you also have a big emphasis on limited runs, right? Limited orders. You know, you've got the limited edition, which are 28 worldwide, but even on your website, I think I saw you mention that you usually are focusing on doing 30 to 40 pieces for each run. Tell us a little bit about the thinking behind that and, you know, what it means, what it allows you to do in terms of quality and control.
Yeah, the reality behind the limited amount of pieces that I offer per model, it's not because I wanna offer that little amount. It's 100% just, the financial aspect of putting that amount of money because I'm not just offering 1 stone dial, I'm offering 6, and then I have my dive watches, and then, like, for me to and then there's minimum order quantities, typically, and if I don't hit those minimum order quantities, my cost is substantially higher, so that's why that's why the prices I'm offering are actually extremely low compared to what they should be. I know a lot of people say $1,000 watch is not low, and I understand that. But for the quality that we're offering, it's a it's a great price. But yeah, if I could produce 3 or 400 pieces at a time, I would do that. It's just because I'm trying to put out so many new models, there's only so much money to go around. So um, also, having said that, I don't wanna be a mass-produced, um, watch brand. I do wanna offer I'd like to get up to 50, pieces per order per colorway. Right now, I'm at about 25 to 30 for the most part. 'Cause, yeah, it will help my costs, but it will eventually get there. It's just building up my core lineup of models and then getting some of that money coming in that I've put out a year ago. Um, yeah, it just takes time. A lot of the other brands I've talked to, they said, "Expect 4 years before you start actually seeing money come in." So we've been lucky. We've sold a couple hundred watches already in the first year, which is it's been better than I thought. But yeah, it just I've probably put out a couple $100,000 into this brand already easily. Yeah, it's expensive and it takes time.
You've shared a little bit about the challenges of building a micro brand. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the most rewarding parts of this journey so far. Obviously, seeing your watches sell
Yeah.
is a great one. You know, meeting your Kickstarter goals. But any stories about people you've met along the way, or collectors that you've connected with that have become big fans of your watches, or anything else that's been really a rewarding part of this journey?
Yeah, there's been a ton of rewarding parts of this. It's amazing to wake up in the morning and do something that you love to do, and I'm so passionate about this watch brand, too passionate to the point where I'm checking my phone for emails after hours, getting back to people at 10 o'clock at night, which I probably should not do for my own sanity, but it's just ingrained in who I am. Customer service to me is the utmost importance. So see it from the side. If I was on the other side of the computer or buying a watch from a brand that I've never heard of, I'd want that kind of support. For me, meeting a lot of the brand owners, it's been incredible. My wife and I go to all these. So far, we've done 3 shows. We did Vancouver, Toronto, and then we just did Prague. And then this year we have Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal set up, and then we're going to probably do Prague and maybe do Singapore as well. But for me, that's been one of the most rewarding things is meeting all these brand owners. They've been so supportive. Our first show in Vancouver, we were beside Christopher Ward, their booth, and Mike Pearson. He's one of the head guys at Christopher Ward. He was so welcoming. He came over, introduced himself. He said, "Anything you need." During the show or at night, one of the nights, we didn't bring any lighting, so they had the core lighting in the room, but it was a bit dark, so he took one of his lights off his own stand, which made his stand darker, and offered me a light for my stand. So, yeah, just I didn't expect the support. I thought it was gonna be a little bit more of a competition between everybody, like, "Oh, come on, buy my watch," but it is completely the opposite. Like, every brand owner is so supportive, which has been incredible. And then the other side of that is just meeting customers at the show, people that have been following you, people that buy your watches at the show, and to me, there's no better feeling than having somebody come up to you and say, "I love your design. I love what you're doing," and willing to put out their own hard-earned money for a watch that you've produced. So gratifying.
It's great to hear about the sort of openness of other brand owners, and sort of the welcoming with open arms,
Yeah.
approach that a lot of them are taking. I also have heard that there might be some collaborations down the line for you. I know there's also a bunch of models that you have planned for this year as well. Can you share whatever you can share? What does the
Yeah.
next year or two look like for Makoto? What do we have to expect as fans of the brand?
Yeah, it's gonna be a busy year. I have quite a I probably already said how many, but I we have quite a few watches coming next year. We have a collaboration with, I can say the name of the company, I can't say too much about it, but Ando. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but I met him in Prague. He does those he's got some really funky watches, so we're doing a collaboration with him. So we're excited about that. Doing a collaboration with one of our stores in Prague that ended up taking our watches, Infinity watches. So we're going to do a collaboration with them. And then we have quite a few other models. So, and then I may be starting another second brand this year.
Wow. Okay. So you're going to be keeping busy. Ryan, this has been amazing. Just amazing to hear about the journey. I'm a big fan of the brand. For others who are listening here today, maybe they didn't know about you before this. Maybe they're interested in learning more, following you on in the journey, seeing these collaborations come to life, this new brand perhaps come to life. Where's the best place for people to follow you? And if folks are interested in the watches as well, where's the best place for them to find them?
Instagram is probably where we do the most posting. So Makoto Watch Company on Instagram. If you go to our website, makotowatch.com, you can sign up. Just there'll be a pop-up. You can save 5% on any of your watches. So those are the two best ways to get a hold of us to purchase something. And then, like you said, we also have the Kickstarter going till February 3rd. That's for our Nagomi watches. Yeah, but if you want to keep up to date, probably Instagram is the best way.
Well, this has been awesome. Thanks again for taking the time to stop by, for sharing your story, and have a great rest of your day over there.
Thanks. You as well.